Hello? Hello? Okay. Well, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us for this panel discussion today. My name is Nikesh Mistry, and I'm the sector head for industrial automation at the Gambica Association. For those of you who don't know, Gambica are the trade association for process control, industrial automation, laboratory technology, and test and measurement in the UK. And we help our members through knowledge, influence, and community with over 200 different member companies in the various sectors, from large multinational companies to SMEs. On the panel today, we have three experts who are part of the Gambica membership, and I'll let them introduce themselves one by one.
Okay, hello everybody. My name's Keith Thornhill. I head up the food and beverage sector for Siemens UK and Ireland. Been in the automation game for many, many years. So many years I can't remember when I first started, but a long time. And in that time, I've seen an awful lot of change, not only in the food sector, but also in the automation arena.
Hello everyone, my name is Dmitry Shram. I'm from Wago. So I'm the product manager for automation in the UK and Ireland. I do support solutions, automations. I've been at that market for quite a few years, not that long as yourself, obviously. But yeah, I've seen a lot of challenges as well.
Good afternoon. My name's Grant Coffin. I am the software and control manager, business unit manager for Rockwell Automation, UK and Ireland. I've been in industrial automation now for in excess of 30 years. Starting off as an apprentice in Michelin in Dundee, and then to where I am today. I've covered many different roles in that aspect. Everything from solution architects, where we're looking at technology mapping for organizations to improve their productivity and outcomes. So yeah, I've a wide and varied exposure to industrial automation over the years.
Thank you. So, as you've heard, we've got a good panel of experts who are going to go through the title of today's panel, which is Unpacking Innovation Through a Real-World Manufacturing Lens. It's a fast-moving sector, compliance-heavy and unforgiving when things go wrong. The idea of today is to unpack the wins, the breakthroughs, and the mindset shifts that are helping suppliers build resilience into their offerings. According to Make UK, the manufacturing facts of 2025 in the food and drink industry, the food and drink sector is the UK's largest manufacturing subsector, ahead of the automotive and aerospace sectors. According to BDO Food and Drink Report, despite economic headwinds, 95% of food and drink manufacturers feel positive about their business prospects in 2025, which is up from 70% of the previous year. So one of the things we're going to start with discussing today is the positives, the wins. So I'd like to ask our panelists, what's an innovation that you've delivered into the food and beverage industry or into the facility that has made a real difference, whether it's uptime, compliance, creativity? What's the most transformative piece of equipment that you've delivered? Anyone can go first. Grant, you've got the mic, so.
Okay, thanks, Nikesh. So it's a really interesting question, because innovation to different organizations means different things. So if we start with a definition of innovation, which is a new idea, product, process that's implemented that creates value for an organization. So, when I look at what I've seen in terms of change across the industrial automation market over my 30 years, it incorporates a lot of different things. The move to digital was innovative in itself. The introduction of integrated safety, had massive uptime improvements for the industrial automation market and manufacturers in general. Not just in the food and bev industry, but the significant improvement in food and beverage. And then you get modern disruptive technologies, things like independent cart technology, which is a recent, probably last 4 or 5 years really, it's come to market as a thing which allows manufacturing agility, the ability to adapt to customer demand and pack sizes and interpretation and manufacturing unit of one type products. So I think for every organization, innovation is different. We've also implemented total end-to-end supply chain integration as well, where you're not only viewing your upstream and but also your downstream supply chain, and that's become more and more prevalent through or accelerated, if you like, through COVID and what happened with the supply chain afterwards. So, and it applies to every level of the organisation, right? If you look at the whole manufacturing functions within an organisation, there's not a piece of that innovation doesn't touch.
Yeah. Anyone else like to add to that, or piece of technology that you might have implemented that's transformed the food and beverage sector?
Right. Yeah, that's an interesting question. Thank you for that. 100% it's difficult to talk about innovations, and in many different industries there are lots of similarities and a lot of differentialities, different points to talk about. In food and bev, I would say, there are many challenges to reduce downtimes. So starting from mechanical challenges, where automation could help to solve these problems, sort of condition monitoring of the bears, of conveyors, where the stop of conveyor could just completely stop the whole production line. Then we're coming to reducing CO2 emissions and energy measurement, of course. With these solutions, just for example, in this industry, I also looked through some statistics. Roughly 30% is just lighting. So 30% of energy goes to lighting. And nobody, not nobody, but nearly, not so many people and businesses think about lighting control. But with lighting control, with modern lights, with daytime control, present sensors, we could reduce this by 80% nearly. So these are just the first steps which we need to take and to look at these innovations, and then harvest this data, integrate it into higher level, into digital system. Again, it depends on the level of digitalization of any manufacturer, but we need to integrate to bring this data to higher systems, high level systems. So that's just...
Yep. Keith, you got anything to add?
Yeah, so Siemens, a big company, has many different types of products and services across the whole ecosystem of the supply chain. I think one of the things that I look at from one of the projects that we got involved with, which was with Nestle actually. And Nestle were looking at their sources business. It was this high-end food service part of Nestle. And they were a typical food company in terms of they were very manual in terms of their data. They are manual in terms of their processes. There's an element of automation, but it was obsolete. A lot of obsolescence, and that goes across all of the food industry in a lot of instances. Their challenge was they knew they had to do something, but how to go about it, how to end up with that vision. So working with them to try and understand where they wanted to be is absolutely critical to the deployment of any innovation. Because unless you know where you want to end up, importantly where you're starting from, it's difficult to make those inroads. So we worked very closely with Nestle to set up those workshops to understand what that roadmap would look like. And then start to do the quick wins. The quick wins around getting some automation upgrades so that we were cyber secure to start off with, but then to make a difference on the capability and the uptime of the automation. We also ran some simulation models of how the old factory was going to operate, because one of the things that the sector knows is there going to be a return on investment? And if you can start to simulate that process before you actually go into that investment, it de-risks that initial investment. So we ran some simulations to see the what-if scenarios. How do we get to that position where that investment is going to deliver an ROI? So the simulation was massively important to the culture of the business, but also to understand how it's going to end up. And all of this came together. We put some planning and scheduling software in above the automation layer into the operational part of the business. So the shift patterns, how could we optimize the shift patterns? How do we optimize the SKUs of how they're going to be operated, which would reflect on how we would do the CIP? What this is leading to is the ripple effect of one innovation leading to another one. And I think that's the difference where everything joined up starts to make a difference. The ROI was basically, they saved 35,000 euros on chemical and water usage on the CIP optimization. They went from 3 shifts to 2 shifts, which is a massive saving on their capacity planning. And their energy bill was reduced significantly because the optimization of the boiling time for the sources, which was the big energy user on the process, was suddenly halved. So they're the sort of things where technology with purpose makes a massive difference, but not one technology, but a multitude of technologies linking together.
That's really interesting. Thank you. I mean, you mentioned return on investment and energy efficiency, and I mean, that's a really good example of actual case study that you've actually managed to help, which is so interesting and important, which can lead into the next question, which essentially energy efficiency itself is a return on investment now. You know, it's the changing demands of society. It's not always monetary. It might be a saving in energy, which obviously does lead into a cost saving eventually, but the initial saving might not be, you know, visible to any business. So what my question is there, how is your business adapting to the changes in, one, the industry and society, but two, to adapting to solutions to meet the sector's needs? So obviously in the food and beverage sector, you've got a lot higher allergen controls now. You've got the need for energy efficiency. How has your business been adapting to that? Does it change how you're operating, or what's the adaptability?
I guess it holds the mic goes first, is it?
Yep.
You're going to struggle with this, aren't you? Certainly from our perspective, and I think, like I say, as predominantly a component and services supplier into the sector, it's about the value add that delivers. And certainly around allergen control, I mean, I mentioned about CIP optimization. A lot of companies absolutely obliterate the actual CIP process because that's the safest option, without really understanding what is enough. The food industry works on a just enough is good enough. And so if they're obliterating certain things, then they're paying for that. And therefore, where technology is coming to its own is starting to understand what is good enough. And that's really, we'll talk about AI and things like that, I guess, but that's where food science is linking to some of the technologies that's going through. From an energy reduction piece, we're getting involved with many projects where the low-hanging fruit of changing lights to LEDs and things like that, and variable speed motors on conveyor belts, is 10, 15 years ago when that started to talk about. So now it's the difficult stuff, the process optimization stuff, and again, that's where technology is going to make a difference, and it also changes the relationship that we have with our customers on the basis of that.
Okay. Thank you. So I think, yes, it's difficult to adapt on the market, definitely following all these technology processes improvements, which all bigger manufacturers need. I mean, food and beverage manufacturers, of course. Well, we do try to develop our own solutions. We try to understand their needs first thing. And I agree, yes, this optimization, it's the key thing now. So optimization of processes and mainly, yes, seeing like modeling maybe of processes. So that's very important. Also, we offer some, well, also that's in terms of complexity, but again, to make processes more simple and more maybe predictable. That's very important for food and bev. Right. So we offer, in terms of our business, just for example, we work with all big players on the market, on food and bev market, and we try to solve their problems. First, think about again energy measurement. So we maybe cannot offer like big cloud-based solutions, but sometimes at low level, it can solve a lot of problems when we offer plug-and-play solutions, for example, where we don't need skilled workers, skilled personnel to code, to understand how things are going. So it's just plug and play where you can measure your parameters, harvest data, and send it somewhere to the cloud, but it's configurable solution. That's just one of examples where we transform our business and just meet these requirements.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for us at Rockwell, the demand for digitization in organizations, is I guess focused the mind around, Keith touched on it a little bit earlier on, how we utilize data within an industrial control system and beyond that industrial control system. So, Keith touched on, not a phrase I like, AI. Anybody that's heard me talk before, the marketing buzz around AI. What we're doing at the moment predominantly is machine learning. But the ability to develop machine learning models for specific applications within, or standard applications within the food and beverage industry is a key focus in terms of our product development. So we want to be able to do that at the lowest level possible. Ideally, we're trying to build that intelligence into devices themselves. That then leads on to, as we become more interoperable, and by that I mean we want to move data around an organization to maximize its capabilities. Cybersecurity has become, a key development process in how we build our products. And there's a lot of focus. There's a lot of new regulation coming out of Europe, which impacts that, and some of that's still to be fully defined. So we're trying to build the airplane as we fly it in terms of that development. The other thing that I think goes along with this is how to start doing that modeling in kind of legacy systems. So we understand that we have the baggage of hundreds of years of industrial operation in the UK particularly. So we're dealing with a lot of old systems. It's how do we maximize and utilize the data that already exists. Yeah, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, but we want to be able to modernize. So how do we capitalize on the systems that already exist today and build upon them? And it's maybe something we'll touch on a little later. We've talked a lot about the advantages that technology can bring and the productivity gains that technology can bring. The biggest aspect, or the reason why a lot of technology projects fail, is because we don't change the culture that sits along with them. So one of the things alongside our technology development that Rockwell are working really hard on is making sure that when we start looking at these systems and start doing evaluations on these systems, that we're also addressing the cultural and people part of an organization, not just the technology part.
Yeah, I think that's super important because that corporate culture really affects the full running of your business, whether it's skills, whether it's the technology, whether it's regulation. You want to be an early adopter rather than late to the party. So I think that's hugely important. And that leads into, obviously, we've all spoken about some good technology that you've implemented. What about the challenges? What's one of the biggest challenges you faced in implementing technology into, obviously, a hygiene-focused industry? What would you say is the biggest challenge that you faced?
So for us, I would say I've probably just touched on it. To be fair, it's not necessarily the implementation of the technology. It often gets blamed as poor implementation, but what we've found is generally it's not the implementation of the technology. It's the change management. We put the technology in for a reason, right? It's to improve our operations in some manner to help us be more productive, produce more units, make more money at the end of the day, and that's generally how organisations measure it. And unfortunately, the UK. If I compare the UK to Ireland, for instance, if you look at the technology adoption in Irish manufacturing as opposed to that in the UK, it's significantly different. But the demographic in Ireland is significantly different. The average working age in the UK is significantly older than that of Ireland. They're more ready to accept new technologies and work with that technology. We've still to kind of cross that Rubicon, if you like. People coming out of schools and university now expect different. They expect data everywhere, access to information wherever they are. They expect connectivity. We're still working on, again, I talked about the legacy systems. How do you take some of the old bus technologies that we have and make that data available to mobile devices? That in itself is a technical challenge, but not one that can't be overcome. But if we don't implement the change management around it and change the processes to take advantage of the information that automated system brings you, or the process improvements that it brings you, then actually you're never going to succeed. And change is difficult, for particularly people of an older generation. They don't feel the need. We've done it this. If I've heard once, I've heard it 1,000 times. This is the way we've always done it. If that's the mentality, if this is the way you've always done it, you're not going to get a difference out. I think it was Einstein that said if we keep doing the same things over again, we get the same result, right? So, for me, the biggest challenge is people.
Yeah, no, I think that's very important.
Right, just to add maybe. So there are many technical challenges, of course, we know them. There is lack of engineers, skilled engineers on the market, that's for sure. We need to work with universities, with educational establishments, and starting from colleges, again, starting from the basics to educate people and the future generations. And again, this is all about people, so I 100% agree with this. So the biggest challenge, maybe from a little bit of a sales point of view, it's to convince business and business owners to invest into those improvements, into digitalization, into technological improvements and optimization of those processes. Because just simply saying, it's a very rich industry. There is money for doing things better. But the biggest thing is to explain why they do need it and how to do this.
You have an answer for how or why?
Totally agree. The culture of the business is the thing that drives everything, and the industry has always been on the basis of, if it's already working, then why do we change it? And even when it's not working, why do we change it in some instances? So how do you change that culture? And I think there's an element of a generation thing, as Grant was saying there. There's a new generation. They're getting rid of all the old guys like me, and there's a new guys coming in, and their expectation of what should be available on their factory floor is totally different to what exists. And so there'll be an element, it'll start to naturally happen, I think, with the technology. Some technology will start to automatically come in on the back of machinery without probably the knowledge of a lot of end users. So they're starting to capture data and things like that from a performance perspective. So things will start to drip feed, but there's an element of, yes, the culture has to change. The skills to understand how that can be achieved has to change. Politically, it has to change, because there has to be the investment cycles to allow companies to invest in the right things to make a difference. And we're all waiting for the budget in a couple of weeks' time to see what impact that has. And we seem to go from one budget to the next budget. What we're trying to work out, is this the cycle to invest? So there's a lot of things that are actually trying to work out what the best routes to actually deploy technology. Siemens is clearly a big advocate of trying to get the right skills. We've got the connected curriculum that goes to all the schools, into universities, that we're trying to position technology, the word that Grant doesn't like, artificial intelligence, into the curriculum. So to understand, well, what can this thing do? Because AI on its own right is nothing. It's what it delivers. That's the thing. So it's trying to get the right technology into the curriculum right the way through is something that we're interested in. Having the ability for SMEs to invest, this isn't just a big company thing, so SMEs are absolutely critical to the development of the food industry in the UK, probably more so than the big guys, relatively. Big guys can generally look after themselves, but the small guys need a helping hand. So Made Smarter, that's part of the Make UK area, is trying to get that SME activity to deploy and see it's something for them. So it's road mapping a direction of change, or whether it's deployment, they need a helping hand, and Made Smarter is something that is going to be something that they can turn to. So signposting where companies can get the investment, get assistance, is going to be critical, but it's a very complicated. It's not just one answer to everything. There's going to be all sorts of things that have to take place to make things happen. We were just talking to a company just recently where the MD's now is part of a biggish company, but he's just come from Turkey into the UK, and he can't believe how backward we are in the UK relative to Turkey, and that just says the positioning where we are currently with our own expertise and deployment of technology.
That's a very, very good answer. Very, very fitting to a lot of the different organizations that are going to actually influence the sector. You mentioned Made Smarter, obviously the government with policy side of things, employers themselves. I think the influence has to come from all of them, including the future workforce. And I think it's a very interesting point. One of the things in the new industrial strategy, the modern industrial strategy, was a wider rollout of the Made Smarter program, which we can't ask to happen faster because it was seen as very much a regional, it started as the Northwest pilot, but if it was nationally rolled out, it would be much more accessible to a larger number of companies. So I completely agree there, but a question to extend to that, and we'll start with Dimitri since you have the mic, but what would you see or want from the sector in the next 5 years? And does the government and other policymakers and influencers have a role to play in making that happen? So, what does it look like? What does the next 5 years look like for the food and beverage sector?
Right. So I think, well, first of all, Gambica is playing a big role into this.
Thank you. That wasn't a targeted question.
Yes. Yes, definitely. It's a big input into all these manufacturing plans. I've seen the strategy. I regularly get these updates. It's really a big job to do. So to get government work together and listen to the companies, to the vendors, to the manufacturers on the market. So that's the first thing. So to get our feedback to the government, to the top level. 5 years, we definitely need a plan for 5 years. I would say, well, first of all, really we are coming into the digital world. It happens, and we need to talk about cybersecurity a lot more. The plan which I can see, well, that's a bit more clear in the EU, to be honest, than in the UK.
Yes.
So they've got CRA, they've got ISC 62443. Here it's coming a bit later. So there is sort of a white paper. It should come through the parliament and get to the top level, to ministers, but still it's a bit slowing down. So I would say they should react a bit quicker to the market needs, and again, to be competitive, to help the businesses be competitive on the international area. So that's a good example from Turkey. Well, I'm originally from Ukraine. I can say that there is a high level of some companies as well. So what I have seen in the country, yeah. So companies like Carlsberg, like so they're like on the top of the technological and digitalization level. So that's just my message: to be
Yeah.
quick and to listen to the market.
No, that's very important.
Yeah.
Yeah, to be resilient faster.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. No, definitely. Who's next?
What was the question again?
5 years.
5 years, yes, the plan. So, and I think the time is right. I mean, I have, been in the game for quite some time actually, and some of the challenges that we have today are the same challenges we speak about maybe 10, 15 years ago, and you do wonder, well, are we ever going to get there? But I think that there's definitely a will. I mean, I know the Food and Drink Federation are really actively lobbying government to say it should be part of the industry strategy. The challenge it has is the profiling of the sector, because you've got a health agenda through ultra-processed food, so it's talking to the Department of Health. You've got a DEFRA agenda which tends to point towards agriculture more than food processing, and you've got a business department that is, we say, that's the largest manufacturing sector in the country. So, because you're across three governments, three departments of government, it's hard to get the message of what is the food industry all about.
Yep.
And that's part of the challenge the sector has. And then is it high value manufacturing? Well, the technology that we're all deploying into the sector and the actual control of some of the challenges that these processes have is far higher than the automotive and the aerospace sector. The challenges that we have with a variable product to actually get it through safe, affordable and quality is incredible. The technology exists and it will continue to be deployed. So there's an element of profiling of the industry. It has to be keep on with the government to recognise that it is the largest manufacturing and it's really important to us all as a human race that has to eat stuff. So that's the first part. But the second part is the time is now right that you cannot keep running a factory on shoestrings and it's 1960s and 70s control systems, because ultimately, whether it's a cyber risk or whether it's just functionality and efficiency, whether it's energy efficiency, it has to be up to date, and that's the only way you're going to drive this. Consumers, retailers have a strong part to play in all of this. You know, if you want to position your products at the right place on a shelf, you'll have to say what that CO2 footprint is going to be across the whole cycle. So scope 3 emissions and things, that is really important. The only way you're going to get that is traceability and data. Digitalization is the only way you're going to get that. So certain things are going to take shape that make it happen. So I think over the next 5 years is going to be, you're going to start to see more and more technology being deployed across the sector.
Yeah, I'm not, certainly from the way I'm looking at it, I don't know if 5 years is long enough. I think we have a generational challenge. Keith there talked about, someone coming in from Turkey, a relatively new manufacturing base. We have a legacy, as I talked about earlier, of 100 years plus of manufacturing that we need to renew. And for me, that relies on skills. And the fact that we don't have, or we've got a massive, skills gap. We haven't invested in fact, apprenticeships have been seen as dirty, as opposed to, going to university. I think we need to bring back some of the hands-on skills and capabilities that industrial automation requires. I was doing a completely different presentation the other week looking at oil and gas. The average age of an engineer in oil and gas is 56. That's retirement in the next 4 years as a highly paid sector. So in 4 years' time, we're going to lose a generation of skills and experience in that sector. And the food and beverage industry is not a huge amount different. We, as employers of industrial automation engineers, now struggle to hire good, skilled, experienced engineers because they're not ten a penny anymore. So I think the investment in skills to evolve the skills model and the demographic that's in food and beverage is a generational challenge, and I think you're probably looking at a 10-year renewal cycle to bring that through. We're not going to change everything overnight, and I think we need to accept that. But to Keith's point, now's the time to start.
Yeah, no, some great answers there. I mean, you're all completely right. It's so many different areas that will change over the next 5-10 years, and they need to be addressed, as soon as possible. I think we've just got about 10 minutes left, so I was going to open up to the audience to see if there's anybody who has any questions that they'd like to ask the panel. Don't be shy.
Nobody's brave enough.
We've got one over here.
Hello. How do you suggest we're going to close this skills gap? Because what you're saying is perfectly correct. I didn't go to university. My father had an engineering business and I went straight into work at 14. I've been in the industry. We got up to a workforce of 10 strong, and then it's gone downhill because there isn't the influence in education to educate people to go into work rather than university. It's just the opposite.
Great question.
I don't want to hog the mic. Okay. So I think there's we touched on the governmental element. I think there's a definite change required in education policy. And a change in, I talk about culture quite a lot because it's people that make a difference. But I think from that point of view, from a people point of view, I think we all have input to that. I think, organisations themselves, need to step up. We need to reinvigorate the apprenticeship programme. It's something that I know Siemens do, Rockwell do, I'm assuming Vago do similar. So bringing on our own skills. But the organisations have to play a key part in that as well, in terms of, we have the apprenticeship levy. Is that the right model? I'm not convinced that it is. But how do we contribute into an apprenticeship or a learning or an education pot and make that work on a national basis? And I include Scotland in that. I know we're a little bit different and probably have our own problems there, but we've got there's a lot spoken about our kind of position politically from an immigration point of view and the like. We need to, because we don't have the skills inherent here, we need to, there will be a gap that we need to fill from an immigration perspective as well, in importing skills. And again, I think we need to accept that, and that needs to be our population as a whole is in general decline. So the immigration thing for me is something else that needs solved and needs to be communicated properly. So I think there's lots of different aspects come into how we re-establish an engineering skills capability in the UK, and it's multifold. Organisations, governmental policy, educational institutions themselves all need to feed into that. And Gambica is very active in terms of, along with a number of other voluntary organisations, for want of a better term, or membership-based organisations, are very active in trying to create that change.
Thanks.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Anybody else want to give their opinion? How do you close the skills gap?
So I totally agree with Grant on what he's said there. I think there's an element of technology itself is getting to a state where it attracts younger people. We're talking co-pilots, we're talking all these different things that now make the job a little bit easier than it used to be. So, ease of use, ease of delivery, ease of service. is getting so much better now than it ever has been. So there's an element of we don't necessarily need the level that we used to have. We may need data scientists and people, different skill sets, but the technology is making it a little bit easier. So there's an element of that has to be fed into the curriculums, which is what we're striving to do, to get these guys to see this as a future career. I was involved, I chaired the Industry Advisory Board for the National Centre of Excellence for Food Engineering out of Sheffield Hallam University. And that project was all about getting graduates as a career of choice into the food industry. It was designed to have a facility that was designed for the food industry, so CIP, ambient, frozen, chilled, and an innovation centre where companies would come together and innovate. The problem was getting kids from school after A-levels to go into a career for food was really difficult. What they really wanted to do was the mech ends, the electrical, chemical, and then go into food maybe at a later date. And it's how do you attract that initial talent into the food industry from day one is a big challenge. And it comes back down to that profile in the sector and everything that goes with it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And actually, at the National Centre for Food Excellence, we had a Gambica meeting there, and one of the things they were doing was working on the fermentation of beer. If that's not attractive to the younger generation, I don't know what is. Yeah. So, no, it's a very, very good point. And Dimitro, do you want to add to the skills gap? How do you feel should be closed?
Yeah, it's pretty well covered, I think, with the two answers. Just to add, again, another great thing from Gambica, which attracts young engineers, it's the Gambica Young Council. It is really good to have maybe more this segment-related, like food and bev council, things for young people, for youngsters. So to attract them being engineers, that's what maybe universities and colleges should be focused on, more marketing thing, I would say, to promote their courses, the professions, the educational programs, whatever. So for going to food and bev industry. And another important thing is to have innovation hubs, sort of innovation hubs from big players, of course, because they can invest into this. I've seen that from my experience in metallurgical industry. So when they even take people from schools, from colleges, bring them to innovation hubs and educate them with the purpose of getting them into the factories and plants. So same thing could be done in food and bev.
Yes, yeah, and another part of the new modern industrial strategy is the innovation hubs and the AI hubs that they're calling them. It hasn't been announced what policy will be put in place yet, but that's the idea, which is all positive. So I think that will bring us to a close, if I'm not wrong, in terms of timing. But we'd like to thank you all for joining us. Thank you very much. And if you'd like to speak to any of the panelists afterwards, then please do. Thank you all to our wonderful expert panelists and to the Engineering Network for having us as a panel today. Thank you.